Cryptocurrencies basically have no value, and they don't produce anything. So you can look at your little ledger item for the next 20 years, and it says you've got X of this cryptocurrency or that. It doesn't reproduce. It doesn't deliver. It can't mail you a check. It can't do anything. And what you hope is that somebody else comes along and pays you more money for it later on. But then that person's got the problem.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit.
But how is it possible that Stellar can help the poorest people in the world? Is cryptocurrency more than just buying internet money in the hopes that someone will buy it for a higher price than you paid? So how does Stellar work? In order to answer that, we first need to look at some of the general tenets of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. One of the main buzzwords behind cryptocurrency is decentralization. Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency. This means that no central entity like the Federal Reserve controls the supply of Bitcoin, and no bank authorizes the transactions made using the currency. Instead, these functions are filled by miners. An algorithm has predetermined the amount of Bitcoin that will be released into circulation and when it will be released. Miners, also called nodes, are people around the world who authorize transactions that are done using Bitcoin, thereby fulfilling the role of a bank. Several miners are needed to authorize a transaction, so there can be a consensus formed that the transaction is not fraudulent. The incentive for people to become miners is that once they authorize enough transactions, they will be put into a raffle of sorts to win new Bitcoin being put into circulation. In order to win that Bitcoin, they need to be the first to guess a 64-digit hexadecimal number. Because the price of Bitcoin has risen so much over the years, this has created stiff competition for miners. Therefore, they are each trying to get a leg up on their competition by using extensive electrical equipment to generate numbers faster than other miners. This has resulted in Bitcoin consuming nearly as much energy as New York City.
Bitcoin uses more electricity per transaction than any other method known to mankind. Just one uses more energy than 1 million Visa transactions and has the same carbon footprint as 85,000 hours of watching YouTube.
Transactions are added to blocks, hence the name blockchain. But these blocks take roughly 10 minutes to mine, so depending on the size of the transaction and the congestion of the network, it could take less than a minute or over an hour to pay someone in Bitcoin. Stellar, on the other hand, can process transactions within 3 to 5 seconds. How is this possible? It is because Stellar works differently in almost every way than Bitcoin. To start, Stellar is not mined like Bitcoin, and instead Stellar's currency, the Lumens, have already been created. Because Stellar is not mined, it does not also have the problem of using an exorbitant amount of electricity. Originally 100 billion lumens were created, but in 2019 the development team cut the supply in half, so there will only ever be 50 billion lumens in existence. But if the lumens are already created, then who would have incentive to administer the network by authorizing transactions? Anchors, of course. Well, what are anchors? In order to understand anchors, you must not think of Stellar as simply a currency, but instead a network. The Stellar network is a decentralized exchange that includes a variety of different assets, including both cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. Stablecoins are virtual currencies that are tethered to real-world assets, such as fiat currencies, and they are the bread and butter of the Stellar network. USD coin already exists, and Stellar aims to establish a Euro coin, Yen coin, Peso coin, and many more.
And put aside blockchain and put aside stable coins, which are supported by assets. Something that's not supported by anything I do not believe has much value.
In order for these stablecoins to exist, they need to be collateralized by anchors. Anchors are financial institutions that act as a bridge between real-world currencies like the euro and the corresponding stablecoin, in this case being the euro coin. Anchors could also bridge to other types of assets such as stocks and bonds, gold, or real estate. Similar to the euro coin, these assets would be tokenized to be able to be traded on Stellar's exchange. So why would anchors become nodes to authorize transactions? If an entity has a lot of business on the Stellar exchange, it is in their best interest to ensure that the network continues to operate efficiently. Unlike Bitcoin, they don't need to be incentivized with mining rewards. There is a rating system of sorts called the Federated Byzantine Agreement System that creates a federation of reputable nodes and weeds out nodes that are bad faith actors. So what does the Stellar network have to do with the Stellar Lumen currency? Each transaction has a very small fee of a fraction of a lumen, and there is a reserve requirement of 1 lumen for each user. This small fee is enough to deter spammers from clogging up the network.
Now we're involved in trying to make sure we get a very efficient digital payment structure set up for all the poorest in the world to get financial products that work for them. The Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money laundering.
These nominal transaction fees are a major selling point for Stellar's utility for the developing world. Stellar was created in 2014 by Jed McCaleb, who is one of the very first people in the cryptocurrency space. Stellar's founding mission was to bank the unbanked, and the first way that it accomplishes that is through the remittance market. There is roughly $600 billion sent in remittances each year, mostly going to India, China, Mexico, the Philippines, and Egypt. This money is usually sent by migrant workers or residents in developed countries back to their families in developing countries. Besides the United States, a large portion of the remittances come from countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, where migrants are hired to build their skyscrapers. Western Union and MoneyGram, which Stellar actually might be buying soon, are the major players in the remittance market today. But these companies are seen as a bit archaic, as on average there is a 6 to 7% fee on money sent. Depending on the country where the money is going, that number could sometimes be as high as 15%. That means that roughly $40 billion is taken by remittance companies each year, disproportionately affecting the poorest countries in the world. That is roughly the same amount as the US spends on foreign aid each year, with the difference being that US foreign aid typically goes to multinational corporations, whereas this money would go directly into the pockets of the people. In addition to being expensive, remittances can sometimes take a while, whereas Stellar transactions are instantaneous. Living in a developed country, it's easy to take for granted the ease of getting a bank account and moving money around. Not everyone has that novelty, and in fact, there are 1.7 billion people in the world without bank accounts. If countries have anchors and stablecoins for their currencies set up, then those who are unbanked can create Stellar wallets to start sending or receiving money, and create a portfolio with different assets. Currently, there are anchors in Nigeria, Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, in addition to anchors who back the USD and the Euro.
To me, it was all about sovereign risk. I love the idea of blockchain technology. I am investing in it. I'm involved with the whole crypto movement now. But I was very much of the mind that there's no way the government is going to allow this to go on, because I, as you said earlier, was convicted of money laundering. I know what lengths they'll go to stop anyone's ability to move money around the globe without filing those forms of over $10,000. So
a common notion about cryptocurrencies is that by nature they compete with fiat currencies like the US dollar. While Bitcoin may do this, Stellar does not do this, and instead it actually complements fiat currencies. Stellar was made to enhance the current financial system, not overthrow it. Not only that, but Stellar's anchors also abide by local KYC laws, and Stellar is compliant with regulations. Besides remittances, Stellar provides an easy way for people in developing countries to keep their money in more stable assets or investments than their native currencies. Just like E-Trade and TD Ameritrade have made it possible for anyone in developed countries to be an investor, Stellar makes it possible for anyone in the world to be an investor. Lebanon is one of the largest recipient countries of remittances per capita, and in 2020 it saw nearly 100% inflation. Stellar would give Lebanese citizens an easy way of holding their money in safer currencies or assets. The developing world has definitely seen the utility in cryptocurrencies, as 32% of the respondents in Nigeria said that they use or own cryptocurrency. Bitcoin also recently became legal tender in El Salvador. In an increasingly globalized world, there is a much greater need for a globalized financial system. Stellar has taken major steps to build the framework for those in developing countries to move money like we do in developed countries and have access to valuable assets to protect against inflation. That's a Zeitgeist, guys. Full disclosure, I do own Stellar Lumens myself, so this could potentially make me biased. This video should not be considered financial advice. All investments involve a risk of loss, and cryptocurrencies are especially volatile. Invest at your own risk and only invest what you can afford to lose. Nevertheless, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys enjoy my content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one.